towards the light. O watcher in the silent hours of night, art thou prepared to greet thy noiseless guests, the messengers from distant spirit worlds? On rapid wings they now are speeding hither. They float around thee, canst thou not perceive them? Soon shall the spirit's eye discern their forms. Hark, child of earth, a chime of silver bells descends to thee from starry worlds above, while gentle fragrances enchant thy sense. The darkness dies. A radiant light appears. Behold the ambient flame encircling thee. That flame of living light, it is my soul. My voice now whispers gently in thy ear. I too was once a mortal such as thou. I am not dead, although my dust has lain deep in the silent tomb for many years. I am not dead. My spirit still is living, serene and strong, robed in immortal garb. I will to thee my earthly life unfold. Then shalt thou comprehend thy future fate, for I shall show thee all the path I trode, from earthly darkness to the spheres of light. Thou art a tool, chosen by higher powers, to tell the world that thou shalt here behold. The gift of words is thine. Thou shalt express my mighty thought, which dominates thy mind. Unknown to thee I hither led thy steps. Thy destiny I welded link by link. My hand, O woman, chiseled out thy soul. Resist thy guide no more, submit in peace. No blessed crop can grow on untilled ground. Deep furrows have been driven in thy heart, and now at last I sow, mine hour has come. May God in mercy overshadow us. I lift thy soul up to the source of light. Help others as I now am helping thee. Write down the message that I bring tonight, with humble thanks, because thy hand was chosen. Who art thou, dost thou ask? I am a sinner, who through repentance has atoned his crimes. My name on earth is utterly forgotten. My race is swept away from off its face. I was a man who once had rich possessions. Alas, a sorry use I made of all. No gentle memories of loving deeds survived me in the dismal hour of death. Yet once I did possess 1,000 treasures. Rank, beauty, health, and riches, all were mine. Men envied me as fortune's petted child. I deemed myself created to enjoy and carefully fulfilled that pleasant mission. No broken sob could reach my deadened ear, nor raise an echo in my empty heart, where on a throne of ice my spirit dwelt, adoring as supreme divinity, as center of the world, as Lord and God, the only being whom I loved, myself. But years rolled on, ever the well-known round. Earth had no pleasure left for me to taste. I was so weary that life's pageant palled, and duller, grayer grew the lengthening days. My selfish soul was filled with blank despair. I grew to hate the joys that could not still my craving after something I had missed, a precious something I had failed to win. What might it be? I knew not, only this: without it life was wasted, dreary, and void. At last, when I had emptied to the dregs life's pleasure cup, I longed for dreamless sleep. The chill embrace of death would cool my brain. Rest, rest, eternal rest, O priceless boon! I had no terror of the starless night, and scorned the thought of coming judgment day. Annihilation seemed to me Elysian, for I was weary, weary unto death. But in farewell I first would summon around me all that in former days had charmed me most: wine, women, music, light, and fragrant flowers. And so surrounded I would breathe my last. It was a merry night, and I the gayest, because life's dreary face so soon would end. 'Twas my last pride to smilingly approach, without a trace of fear, my yawning tomb. The flickering lights burned low, the flowers drooped. The hour grew late, my noisy friends had gone. One guest remained, I was alone with death, whom I had dared to summon to my feast. A flash, a shot, then deepest silence reigned. One thrill of anguish quivered through my frame, then all was still. A sense of dreary numbness crept slowly, surely all over my limbs. Around me deepest night, yea, ebon darkness. If death had come, why did it fail to bring that blessed sleep for which I yearned so long? When would oblivion sweep away the past? Why this delay? At last a dawning fear shook me that something would begin, but what? I waited thus with panic-stricken soul. Death I had courted to escape my thoughts. I had destroyed myself. I must be dead. I felt my body growing stiff and cold. The heart had ceased to beat. The pulse stood still. I was a corpse, mere matter, nothing more. A thing which surely was bereft of sense, yet after death, how could my body think? I was aghast, for now at last I knew that I had failed to murder all in me. One part was left. My thought was still alive. No mortal words can ever paint the terror that seized me when I grasped that awful fact. My senses seemed to whirl in stormy chaos. What would my future be? When should I know? The night was dark, nowhere a ray of light, and I must wait. For what? I dared not guess. Was it eternity? Was it an hour that I endured this torture of suspense? I cannot tell. It seemed 1,000 years, to be alive against my will. What doom for me, who hoped the grave to be the end? Could there be truth, then, in the devil's creed, of an avenging God who, merciless, condemns all sinners to eternal hell? If so, I meant to bravely meet my judge, and to receive erect the cruel sentence. I courage felt to calmly all endure, if but the torture of suspense might end. Still, time went on. In vain I claimed my doom. No judge appeared. A cry of keen distress broke forth at last, deep from my frenzied heart. I clamored wildly, "Oh, have mercy, Lord!" A voice at once replied from out the gloom. "What is thy wish? What favor dost thou claim from God, whom thou hast all thy life denied?" I murmured humbly, "Lord, a ray of light." At once a flash of radiance fell on me, and I beheld myself. Oh, bitter shame! Most ghastly is that moment for a man who lived in utter darkness here on earth. Pray for the blind, that they may not despair when after death at last their open eye shrinks from the sight which they are forced to see, a human heart in hideous nakedness. The angels of the Lord behold it trembling, and turn away at once their shuddering glance. In abject shame the soul attempts to hide, and full of anguish begs for solitude. God grants that grace. The soul is left alone, alone with all the shadows of the past. I saw my earthly life glide past in vision, scene after scene, forgotten long ago. How blind, insanely blind had I not been! The sight of all my crimes confounded me. They crushed my spirit with their leaden weight. At last I whispered, "Punish me, O Lord." The voice replied, "God claims no penalty." Sin punishes itself. Each evil seed allowed to grow in wanton liberty must bear its bitter crop of pain and woe. The angels of the Lord no anger feel. At human crime they see its fruit and mourn. Unhappy spirit, thou hast asked thy sentence. Learn then that long ago thy fate was sealed. There where thy treasure is, thy heart will be. Thus spake the Christ. These words contain thy doom. Each man has something which he dearest holds, his God, a fellow creature, or himself. On earth he is at liberty to choose, a treasure to be kept eternally. The soul can after death no more abandon what during life it found most fit to love. What was thy treasure, hapless fool? Behold it. A flood of light streamed down, and I perceived a lifeless body stretched upon the floor, amidst a pool of blood. It was my corpse. Behold thy treasure. thou canst claim no other. Thou art compelled to keep thy cherished God. Thou madst an idol of lump of clay, no more to leave it is thy awful doom. No, no, I shrieked, I will not thus be fettered. Ah, loose me from this body I destroyed. I love no more this thing, I hate to see it. O set me free, in mercy break my chains. Hark, thou hast entered spirit life unbidden. No room with us was yet prepared for thee. The threshold of eternity no man may cross before his final hour is struck. The plans of God no mortal ever altered. He is the master over life and death. There is a lesson all on earth must learn, and none may slip away the task undone. Nor lightly fling the human garb aside until the soul is fit to leave its dwelling. Woe to the man who scorns the gift of life, who greatly daring heaven would extinguish the spark divine which burns within his soul. The deed is vain. He only makes more sure the fate he has created by his acts. The sacred tie, uniting soul and body, is only severed at the Lord's command. The will of thy Creator links thy spirit still for a time to this poor clay. Submit. Learn to abide in patience, captive soul. The day when liberty shall dawn for thee. So hope remains, my punishment will end? I am not chained for all eternity? I cried aloud, all thrilled with gratitude. The angel answered, every pain will end. One sin alone can never be forgiven, the sin of pride that does not wish for grace. For then the spirit dooms itself to darkness. God's arms are ever open. Every soul that struggles bravely upwards finds the light. Though far the goal, yet it is reached at last. I murmured low, most merciful thou art, O glorious angel, let me know thy name. Canst thou not guess it? Often I approached thy stony heart, strove to gain admittance, but was repelled as soon as I drew near. I am the mournful angel men call grief. The Lord of mercy sends me down to earth to show the way which leads men upon to him. I sow in sinful hearts contrition's seed, then buds humility from burning shame. The yearning soul strives hard to leave the mire, though weak and trembling still it bravely seeks to climb the thorny path to which I point. Then hasten to his aid the radiant host, who in the name of Christ works deeds of love. Their gentle hands cannot remove all pain, but they give strength to bear the heavy cross. They fill the weary soul with hope and courage, and whisper promises of coming bliss. The pilgrim soon is taught to fix his gaze above the darkness of this present world, up to the distant hope where all is peace. For thee there still remains thy crown to earn, of faith and hope and charity entwined. These thou must tend and nourish in their heart, but first the arduous task of patience learn. How desolate and cold the graveyard seemed, my only home in dismal winter nights, if I had better used the gift of life, preparing me a nest in faithful hearts. My frozen soul might now have been their guest, and found relief and warmth at friendly hearth. Alas, on earth was none of humankind, whose grief attracted with magnetic power my wretched soul, by all alive forgotten. I was alone in solitary gloom, the one companion left, my lifeless frame. Despairingly I searched 1,000 graves and hoped to find another living soul, chained to the empty forms that mouldered here beneath the snow. Alas, it was in vain. Each soul had left the worn-out shell of dust, in former days the object of its pride. Each one had gladly flown. I alone, was still a captive in this place of dread, indissolubly fettered to my corpse. No thing on earth filled me with such loathing. My ghastly treasure, with intense disgust, day after day I watched its slow decay. Sometimes the broken eyes would seem to weep, as though attempting to express my grief. They fain would bring me the relief of tears. One night I wandered round the dreary grounds and reached the gate. Then in the dismal darkness I heard a broken sob, a feeble wailing. Who could it be? Who broke the ghastly silence? A living being? If so, why came he here? It was a child, a small deserted child, left here to perish in the winter snow. I felt compassion for the teeny waif who softly sobbed himself to sleep forever, and anger against the mother who could leave her child alone to meet a frozen death. What punishment too great for such a sin? What could atone for such a cruel deed? In righteous wrath I cried, "Accursed be she who has abandoned this defenseless child." Like a clap of thunder rang the answer forth, "Man, who art thou, who darest thus call down the holy wrath of God upon thy sister? The sinner thou hast recklessly condemned, thou shalt behold, repent thy malediction. Leave to thy God the strong avenger's hands, the care of vindicating a martyr's blood." Beside me stood an angel. Sad and stern I found his look, which seemed to pierce my soul. He grasped the hand I trembly outstretched. Then, swift as thought, he swept away with me. He took me to a city where I lived in former days. We reached a den of vice, where during life I was a constant guest. At his command I entered it again. How weird, how strange appeared the house of sin! Aghast I saw among the shameless crowd unnoticed guests from silent spirit worlds stand dark and threatening close behind the living. I saw how evil souls with deadly hate urge fallen men to ever darker deeds. I saw God's angels struggling hard to save the sparks of virtue not extinguished yet. This noisy palace was a battlefield, where little recked the mortals that their fate hung on the silent fight twixt light and darkness. But many gloomy spirits too I marked, who did not fight, but wandered round the place in dismal watchfulness and dumb despair. These were the souls who once had driven there, mortals who spend their lives in wanton revels, mourn bitterly when solemn death appears, and sternly summon them to leave this world. They strive against their lot, they fain would linger. Still on this earth, whose vilest pleasures imprison after death their hapless souls. They have no strength to rend the loathsome fetters that vice has forged. Earth's joys they still remember. Alas, poor slaves, they love and miss them yet. Their evil lusts remain and torture them, since they no longer can be satisfied. Thus they remain until desire is dead, compelled to watch the sins of living men. At length they loathe the very sight of vice. Then slowly they forget their low delights. Unclean remembrances are swept away. The soul begins to long for pure air, and lifts its weary glance from dismal earth, till lo, it sees a ray of distant heaven, and stretches unaccustomed arms in prayer. The heavy chains slip off, the soul is free. Magnetic force attracts it up to God. When no regrets enchain the soul to earth, then it is lifted up by ardent longing to radiant spheres that it cannot approach until it learns that death means liberty. I noticed then a spirit standing by, with wistful gaze intently bent on me. How well I knew the form! It was my mother. I flew to greet her with a cry of joy, but she drew back, avoiding my embrace. On earth my mother's arms were never closed against the son she tenderly adored. Now mournfully she pointed to the crowd surrounding us. With burning shame I cried, "Mother, mother, have I brought you here?" She bowed her head in silent, tearless sorrow. Then brokenly she whispered, "O my son, you were my idol, dearer than my God, who granted me the gift of motherhood. Enthralled by trammels of an earthly love, no soul can rise. The tie must first be broken, the clay we worship from its altar flung. When death approached, I yearned to stay with you. I had my wish, I was no longer free. My love had grown a chain attaching me closer to your side. Invisible I stood and read within your heart your guilty thoughts. I followed you with horror to this place. My son, you were my pride and joy, but now my head is bent in shame for you. You added grievous burden to my cross by dragging with me to your degradation. I stood amazed and overcome with grief. O mother, dearest mother, pardon me. I did not know, oh, had I only guessed, that your pure eyes could see my darkest deeds. My evil angel should not have prevailed. Nay, I had fought him then with might and main. No man on earth could surely be so fallen. Then he would plunge in vice, if but he knew his mother's eyes could follow him. Each one would shudder at the thought that the departed, dear to his heart, was thus compelled to be a silent witness to his hidden sins. Atrocious is my doom, yet well deserved. But you, what crime is yours, your love for me? Are mothers punished for their deep devotion? Unjust is he who such a verdict passed. The shade of holy wrath, which long had darkened my mother's tender features, vanished now. She gently smiled. Do not so quickly judge the sacred laws you fail to understand. If keener pain is measured out to me than I deserve, I suffer not in vain. It is for your dear sake, I murmur not. One day my grief shall be your gain, my child, when once you truly grasp the love of Christ, who suffered meek 1,000 pangs for us. Then at the memory of your mother's grief you will adore the mercy of the Lord. You love me still, although you now have gazed into the deep abyss down which I fell. I cried, all trembling with surprise and joy. Then in a whisper soft the answer came. I love you still, but now with tender pity. My blind devotion helped to ruin you. No mortal man is fit to be adored. I worship you no more. My broken idol has lost the power to enthrall my heart. Woe unto me! I knew not in my blindness that women harm the men they long to serve, by giving all and claiming nothing. Love must be the recompense of noble strife, a price to victory, then it is precious. The love a man deserves he values high. The love unearned despises wantonly. Once I was weak, the slave of my own heart. Now I am strong, the ruler of my love. It has no more the power to hold me down. Strength from above is granted it to rise. O mother dear, do not abandon me. I am unworthy of your love, I cried. But do not leave me hopeless and alone. You have your liberty, I still am chained. Remain with me, though you are at last are free. She answered gently, Such a sacrifice would bring no benefit to you, my son. My mother heart would gladly share your woe, if by sharing I might rend your bonds. Alas, each spirit has to fight alone, the strenuous battle with the lower self. No other back than ours may bear our load. No human aid can drag for us our cross. The only help I can bestow is prayer. Allow no hopeless sorrows to consume you, because I am compelled to leave your side. My yearning lifts me upward. You will follow. When you have learned to meekly bear your fate, be brave. For every victory you gain, you will receive sweet comfort from above. My mother vanished. I was left alone. No friend in all this crowd. I felt myself abandoned, lost and utterly forlorn. My heart was filled with bitterness intense. Then to the angel at my side I turned. Behold, O Lord, even my mother shuns me. Let me return unto my lonely grave. I will not linger in this noisy crowd. Abhorrent to me is a sight of sin. I suffered less in my dark solitude. Remember thy companion at thy grave. The angel gently said, Fulfill thy mission. The child is still alive. Go, find its mother, and crush her with thy righteous indignation. Behold the woman in that corner crouching. Draw near, 'tis she. Go and observe her well. In silence I reluctantly obeyed. The pangs of grief had cooled my earlier wrath. Revengeful thoughts within me long had died. What could I have to do with that poor creature? Her shocking sin was no concern of mine. I could not clearly see the woman's face, for she had hidden it with both her hands. And against the table rested wearily. Exhausted, desperate, she seemed to be a wounded animal that yearns to die. She could not laugh at others at her tray, nor weep. The fountain of her tears had dried. I watched the hapless creature till my heart grew soft to her. The angel whispered low, "This is the woman thou hast dared to curse. Remembrance of her child now tortures her. Behold her grief. What pang hast thou to add to crush more utterly that broken heart? Why art thou silent? Dost thou fear to judge the fallen sister who before thee stands? God's justice she shall not confront alone. There is a man whose sin is greater still. That babe a father had. It was his duty to give protection unto child and mother. He cast them both aside. This coward deed for vengeance cries to heaven. Though on earth such acts are not condemned by human laws, God made man strong that he might help the weak, whom now he ruins, careless of remorse. Behold this woman here, so deeply sunken. There was a time when she was sweet and pure. Her only treasure, her chaste innocence. She, thoughtless, gave away with lavish hands. The man she loved and trusted took the gift, and in return gave lifelong shame and grief. He needed not her love. An idle hour had gratified a passing whim, no more. Cold scorn and mockery assailed her steps. Wherever with her nameless child she went, each door was closed. This one alone was open. So in despair the little one she left. Her for this crime should justly bear the blame. Impulsively I cried, "The heartless father! He murdered both the mother and the child. So base a scoundrel is not fit to live." The angel murmured, "Look at her once more, and beg thy God to be a lenient judge." I looked, and looked again, with wonder filled, and suddenly it seemed to me I knew her. Her bended form familiar was to me. I sought mid half-forgotten memories. I must have known her surely, but where? She raised her face. I saw the pallid features. O God, 'twas she, the happy, playful child, whose rosy lips, alas, had tempted me. I recognized the spot beneath the curls, where I had kissed her last with languid lips. I sank together with a shuddering cry. The angel sternly said, "Thou art the man. The helpless infant flung away to perish, whom thou hast deigned to pity, is thy son. The teeny victim waits. Come, watch him die." Once more I stood beside the lonely spot, where on his bed of snow the boy was resting. He was alive as yet, although the breathing could scarcely be perceived, so faint it was. I bent despairing over the prostrate form and cried aloud in bitter helplessness. Oh, could I purchase with 1,000 pangs 1 hour of life, that life I once disdained? How quickly I would fly to summon help. My hapless child, thou wouldst not perish thus. My sigh no echo raised, it died unheard. The howling gale alone gave me response, by heaping higher drifts of glittering snow all around the fragile wreck of human life. The child would perish if no help arrived. No hope was possible, yet still I hoped. It could not, should not be. I must prevent my crime from reaping such a bitter harvest. Alas, I had no power to help. I felt my utter nothingness. My very soul rose up to God in ardent supplication. In that dark hour of anguish, faith was born. Faith in the mighty Lord, whose hand can snatch away from death its victims. I attempted to lift my being on the wings of prayer, humbly imploring God to spare my child. I then perceived a multitude of angels. Their silver voices chanted, "Pray as we. Thy will be done in heaven and on earth, O God of love, forever and forever." I sink again down from the dazzling worlds to which my ardent thought had tried to soar. Half blinded by the glories there perceived, I never dared to stammer forth my prayer. How dismal, cold, and dark the earth appeared. Poor child, why had I wished to chain him there? No, I ought no longer to prevent his pure white soul from taking instant flight straight to the arms of Christ, the children's friend. A martyr's crown waits those who meekly suffer for others' guilt. My son had won that crown. What is this? Whence comes this wondrous light, which now illuminates the night with brilliance? It emanates from me. I saw a flame, which issued from my icy heart. 'Twas love. That spark from heaven, kindled by my child, was fed with burning fuel of repentance. All thrilled with joy, I felt a stream of warmth. of radiant light all through my being glow. At last I knew how sweet it is to love, and felt most grateful to have learned that lesson. The end drew near. A snow-white childish soul emerged from out of its broken fragile shell, and I drew back, not daring to approach, lest he in terror should recoil from me, shun the father who had given him the wretched gift of life and nothing else. The child was gazing out. He felt alone. There on the threshold of that unknown world to which he had been summoned, would he still no father find, with sheltering arms outstretched? On earth this greeting was a mother's tears. Though innocent, he was the child of shame. He had been born, that was his only crime. Was not that crime by death atoned in full? Now that to spirit life he had returned, was there no father who his duty knew? He looked around, and then perceived at last the flame which from my soul leapt forth to meet him. I miss thee, whom I never knew on earth, he whispered, nestling in my hungry arms. O Father, where thou stayest, let me stay. No, no, around me all is cold and dreary, poor child. I will not share with thee my woe. My crime against thee would still more oppress me if I delayed thy luminous ascent. Look up. Behold the 1,000 stars of heaven. Thy home is there. Spread out thy snowy wings. I love thee. Gladly will I now renounce the joy thy presence would have given me. Farewell, we soon shall meet. I follow thee, when in his mercy God my pardon seals. The child then cried, See, thy chain is broken. O Father, thou art free. What blessed joy! Now hand in hand to heaven we can rise, we two together always. God is good. What glorious bliss it was at last to fly away from cloudy earth and liberty and to approach the sun, whose golden rays surrounded us with roseate brilliancy. Divinely fair is the eternal dawn, which greets the first ascension of the soul. Its wondrous splendor mirrors faintly forth the great Creator's own magnificence. Praise, glory, and thanksgiving unto God, who made the sun an emblem of himself. The human eye cannot endure its radiance. When spirits lift their glance to it, they tremble, and reverently bend in adoration of that sun's origin, the source of life. Man can by virtue of his thoughts create a teeny world of beauty for himself. The thoughts of God gave birth to lustrous heavens. The stars are a reflection of his glory. Life, love, and light compose the Trinity. A myriad sparks proceeded from that source. Each spark must grow till it becomes a flame, which through eternity will not be quenched. How is the soul to grow? Through sorrow only, for grief makes man grow greater than himself. Affliction winnows tares from out of the wheat. The wheat grows up, it is the crop of God. Behold the drops of rain which fall from heaven. They mingle briefly with the dust of earth, until the sun recalls them from the clay, and lifts each sparkling drop up to the sky. So shall at last each wandering soul return unto the source of life from which it has flowed, there to enjoy communion with the Christ, and merge in perfect unison with God. There is no paradise of idle rest, where blessed spirits dwell in aimless joy. The highest goal to which we can aspire is to resemble God. To reach that end, we struggle upwards through 1,000,000 years. Eternal hope brings us eternal joy. We paradise create within our breast. When sorrow comes to visit human hearts, that angel's mission is to sweep the temple where God himself elects in grace to dwell. We follow in the mighty steps of grief, with gentle tread and cool the burning wound. We kiss away the tear which hides the sky. Another angel comes. His name is Peace. He finds in broken hearts a resting place. To every spot on earth where prayers rise, we quickly fly and carry them to heaven. Descending swift with blessings from above, we watch in patience by the bed of pain, and guide the faltering steps of infant souls. We fill the poet's dreams with wondrous beauty, and bid him hear a strain of angel songs. His silent sobs we melt in harmony. His highest thought is but a gift from us. Say, can there be a fair paradise? Can mortals dream a joy exceeding ours? Like Christ, we always sacrifice ourselves, yet keep eternally more than we give. Now dawn is near. The lamp is burning low. Thy weary head sinks down in lassitude. Thy task is done, our spirit child created. Fruit of my thought, it is grown up in thee, in pain brought forth, but yet of love begotten. The seed he bears within is life eternal. That seed will germinate in bleeding hearts and ripen to a crop of richest blessings. So ends Towards the Light.